I wanted students to realize that Taylor Swift was working in a tradition like even older than the American tradition, right? So going back to classical, medieval, and Renaissance poetry.
Often the measure of art is whether it stands the test of time, but some argue popularity shouldn't cloud our appreciation of modern literature. When it comes to individuals who have made such a big impact, especially when it comes to theater, poetry, music, what are your thoughts about this idea of you have to work and get to a certain level before you're recognized for the work that you're doing?
What's really interesting is that both Shakespeare and Hitchcock now are seen as really canonical, really important to the respective genres in which they write. They've stood this test of time. But probably all three of these artists, Hitchcock, Shakespeare, and Taylor Swift, suffer from being incredibly popular in their earliest parts of their careers.
And why do you say suffer?
Because they're commercial artists. They're artists making money. They're not artists making art for, its own. They're not suffering and they're not starving for their art. They're like making money with their art, right? Psycho makes Hitchcock incredibly wealthy. Shakespeare was made wealthy. He made money on tickets and
on the shows.
Yeah. And Taylor Swift, we're getting daily reports on how much she's making with this new Eras tour.
So you brought up Shakespeare, and I actually did make a connection between poetry and the work that she does. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Sure. The first song we analyzed in class was the song Red, and I had very simple ambitions just to talk about metaphor and simile. And then I moved from that song to a Shakespeare sonnet. We realized that the progression of color going on in the song Red from blue, gray to black also was in Sonnet 73 when our imagery moved from yellow, orange to red. And magically, we concluded that Sonnet 73 was Shakespeare's Red. You have to historicize what Shakespeare's doing in his time period, what she's doing in her time period, but enough connections to sort of make this interesting friction between her works and his works, and how popular they are and how meaningful they are for their audiences. And I think that makes for really interesting conversation about what we think of as literature and what is its value, both socially and studied in the university today.